This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, so over the years we've had many shiurim on Teveria and Rabbi Meir's shita of Ben Kach Nekram Banim. So this evening we're going to explore new vistas in Shitas Rabbi Meir in the city of Teveria. We're going to bring Lamdus into the shita Rabbi Meir. We're going to bring new machshava into the shita Rabbi Meir, new ideas. So the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Yosi, Yehi Chelki mi Machnise Shabbos b'Teveria. If only my share would be among those who bring in the Shabbos, who allow the Shabbos to enter in Teveria. Rabbi Yosi wants to be joined by those who greet the Shabbos in Teveria. What's special about those who greet the Shabbos in Teveria? Rashi says Teveria is Neshi Hamuka. Teveria is a low-lying city. It gets dark while it's still day. Because it's so low down, all the areas higher than it block out the sun. So Shabbos actually comes earlier in Teveria than elsewhere. It seems like it's dark. So therefore Rabbi Yossi says, when it comes to Shabbos, I want to be among those who greet the Shabbos in Teveria, because Shabbos in Teveria begins earliest, and he says, I want to be among those who take leave of Shabbos in Sipori, because Sipori is on the top of a mountain. Just one simple question. Now, Teveria, contrary to what many people think Teveria, it's near Tzfas, it's high up, it's in the mountains. Teveria is one of the lowest spots on planet Earth. It's an interesting fact. It's one of the lowest spots. It's 689 feet below sea level. I did my research. It's literally, the Gemara Megillah calls it Tibura Shel Haaretz. It's the navel of the world. It's the navel. The reason why it's called Teveria, the Gemara says in Megillah Daf Vav, it's Miloshen Tibura. But if the reason why Rabbi Yossi wanted to greet Shabbos in Teveria because it's low, then why didn't he say Yichalki Machnise Shabbos B'Yam HaMelach? If you want to go low, how low can you go? You could go lower than Teveria. Teveria is not the lowest spot on earth. It's pretty low. But he should have said, if the whole Nakuda of Teveria is because it's low, so there are lower spots. Why Dafka did he say my share should be among those who greet the Shabbos in Teveria? There must be something special about Teveria that it's so connected to the Shabbos that if you have to greet Shabbos anywhere, it should be Teveria. There's a very interesting medrash. I could not find the medrash in the medrash. It's quoted by the Chida. The Chida says it's a Yalkut Yeshaya. That Klal Yisrael, when they were in Golus Bavel, Klal Yisrael said, you know what? Now that we're in Golus, we don't have to keep Shabbos anymore. We're putter from Shabbos. That's the lashon of the medrash. The medrash says, Amru Yisrael, Hava anu begolus, bedinhu shloi nishmar Shabbos. Klal Yisrael said, since we're in Golus, bedin we shouldn't have to keep Shabbos. Frek the Chida in the Sefer Pnei David, what's the svara, what's the logic that because we're in Golus, you shouldn't have to keep Shabbos. What Shabbos is, Tolah is mitzvah hatuliyas ba'aretz. It's like Shumas and Maestros. You only have to keep in Eretz Yisrael. What's the Havamina? What's the argument that Klal Yisrael uses that because they're in Golus, they don't have to keep the Shabbos? Okay, so you want to know, what does this have to do with Parshas Noach? So Noach comes out of the Teva, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, for 1 year, the world ceased, everything was destroyed. Vayimach es kol hayakum. But it's interesting pasuk. It says that God destroyed v'ez kol nefesh chaya, v'ez kol asher ba'aretz. It says the word kol twice. So Rabbi Shulei Diskin asks, it's superfluous. It already says. Let's see if we could have the lashon here. It says Rebbeinu Shalom destroyed everything on the earth, and then it says again, the Rebbeinu Shalom destroyed everything on the earth. Let's see. Here, Vayigva, this is Parak Zayin Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Vayigva kol basar, and uvechol hasharetz, v'chol ha'adam. It's repetitive. It says Rebbeinu Shalom destroyed everything, and he destroyed everything. So Rabbi Shulei Diskin says that the double lashon is ein riboy achariboy elamiyot. The Gemara says in Zvachim on Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Beis that there were two survivors of the Mabel, Sichon and Oig. So that's Merumas in the pasuk. It says Hashem destroyed everything. Hashem destroyed everything. Ein riboy achariboy ela miyot. Okay, be it as it may. So the pasuk says like this: after a year, that even the sun and the moon went into hibernation. They didn't function for an entire year. It says, Ribbono Shel Olam Oid Kol Yemei Haaretz. For the rest of the history of the world, Zera, the planting season, B'katzir, the harvest, V'kar, the cold, V'chayim, the heat, V'kayitz, and the summer, V'chayif, in the winter, V'yom V'layla, day and night, Lo Yishboisu. It will never cease. Meaning, I will never stop the seasons again, I will never stop the celestial bodies again. However, the Gemara in Sanhedrin learns from the Pasuk, Yom V'layla, Lo Yishboisu, day and night should never cease, that not only does it mean that the sun and the moon will always cease, and day and night will always, the sun and the moon will always work, but it is prohibited for somebody ever to take a day off from work. One is never allowed, a Ben Noach may not rest on any day of the week. A Ben Noach may never say, you know what, I'm not doing malacha today. A Ben Noach is commanded to do malacha all 7 days a week. In fact, the Gemara says, look at number 6, Gemara in Sanhedrin and Chesam and Beis. How do you remember it? Noach. Yeah, not too hard. V'amar Reish Lakish. Oived koichavim sheshavas chayiv misa. If a guy takes a day off, he says, today, I'm going to go to the synagogue, I'm going to sing Lecha Daidi, I'm going to come home, I'm going to eat gefilte fish, I'm going to eat matzah balls, I'm going to eat dessert, I'm going to go for a spatzir, I'm going to come to shul, I'm going to have kiddush, I'm going to go to another kiddush, go to a third kiddush, and I'm not, the whole day I'm not going to do malacha, he's chayiv misa. Goy sheshavas is chayiv misa. Shenemar, Yom v'layla lo yishbos, you're not allowed to rest day and night. V'amar mar ashar shel henzui misasan. A warning for a Gentile is their death. They don't have to be... Their warning is their misa. So now the Gemara says, is this only if they rest on Saturday? What if they rest on Monday? Says the Gemara, Maravina afilu sheni b'Shabbos. Ayin b'Marsha, why the Gemara say even Monday? The Gemara should have said even Sunday, even. Some of Farshim say because it's as far as anywhere in the world, when it's Shabbos for us, it could be Shabbos somewhere else Monday. That's as far off as our Shabbos could be. I mean, even Monday, but maybe not Tuesday and Wednesday. But be it as it may, the Gemara says, the Gemara has a kasha now. If a guy that rests on Shabbos is Chayiv Misa, so then why isn't it counted as one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach? Yeah? Says the Gemara, the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach are only things you're not allowed to do. Kum va'aseh. Ki kachashiv sheva al taseh, kum va'aseh loy kachashiv. We're only counting things that goyim are doing passively, meaning things that you're not allowed to kill, you're not allowed to steal. So the way they observe it is sheva al taseh. But kum va'aseh loy kachashiv. We're not counting things that you fulfill by doing anything. We're not right. So goyim have a mitzvah of working on Shabbos. So that should be one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nai Noach. The answer is no. The Sheva mitzvahs b'nai Noach are only things that you do by not doing anything, not things you do actively. Okay, so that's the Gemara. The Gemara says, any other what?
Mitzvahs that we're not counting.
Yeah, yes, there are other mitzvahs that we're not counting. For example, a guy is now to learn Torah. Also, goyim may have a mitzvah puravu, it's machlekes. It's not one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nai Noach. Again, we're not counting things they have to do. Okay, fine. So that's a good kasha, because dinim l'chayra is something you have to do actively. I believe the Maral says, but the purpose of dinim is so they don't violate the others, the Shavat Tasa. Okay. But bottom line is that a goy sheshavas is chayiv misa. And the question is why? That's what we want to investigate. Why a goy who keeps Shabbos is chayiv misa? What's so terrible about keeping Shabbos? It's a bad thing to keep Shabbos? What if a guy comes into shul one morning and he wants to blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah? Goes on date. He could blow as much as he wants. He could blow 100 kailos. He could blow tkiyas to miyushav, tkiyas to ma'umad. No problem whatsoever. Let's say a guy wants to wear tefillin. Goes on to hate. Let a guy wear. Let's say a guy wants to wear talis. No problem. Let's say a guy wants to do shiluach hakein. Let's say a guy wants to come to shul and be quiet by chazar sashatz. Right? If he wants, he could do that. He's allowed to.
That's rare.
Not only Jews have to be quiet by chazar, even goyim are allowed if they want. They're not mechuyev to talk. A guy is not mechuyev to talk by chazar sashatz. So goyim are allowed to observe. Maybe they don't get schar. But when it comes to Shabbos, goyim are not allowed to violate the Shabbos. Why? Why not? So the Chida, in many of his writings, addresses and discusses this inyan. Why is a guy not allowed to observe Shabbos? This is mamish the Torah of the Chidah. This is a famous concept of the Chidah. By the way, just an interesting thing. We're going to first read from the Sefer Avas David. Well, I'm going to mention it a little bit later. The pasuk says about Shabbos, "Ois hi beini uveinechem ladas ki ani Hashem mekadoshchem." We know that a Jew has three oisos. We have during the week tefillin. We have milah. And when we don't have tefillin on Shabbos, we have Shabbos. So Shabbos replaces tefillin. In fact, the Smag mentions that these three oisos are marumas in the word Shabbos. Shabbos stands for Shabbos, bris, tefillin. These are the three oisos of a Jew. Now, if I were to ask you, when somebody has an ois, an insignia on them, that would usually indicate that it's a sign of avdus, a sign of servitude. So what indicates that we are servants of Hashem? The fact that we have Shabbos, that's an ois, it's a sign that we're indentured to God. The fact that we have a bris, we have a mark on our guf that we're indentured to God. The fact that we wrap tightly leather straps around our arm, that shows we're indentured to God. But the Chidah says, look at the great love HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us, that the three signs that the Rebbe Hashem gives us, which you would have expected them to signify that we're avodim to Hashem, just the opposite. The three oisos of the Jew signify that we are banim LaHashem. Primarily the Shabbos. Shabbos teaches us that we are not God's servants, that we are His children. Why? Says the Chidah, and he says an idea, he doesn't explain it. We'll have to go to another piece in the Chidah to understand it. Shabbos is the scepter of the king. Shabbos is God's sharvit, his scepter. Now, if a mere plebe, if a mere hedyoit, a mere ordinary citizen, goes into the palace and picks up the scepter of the king, what's his punishment? Chayiv misa, he's marid b'machas. There's only one guy in the palace who could take the scepter of the king, walk around with it, dance around with it, and the king's going to give him a little... Who does the king not mind if they pick up the scepter? The Ben HaMelech. Because one day he's going to be holding that scepter himself. So Shabbos, which is the scepter of the king, indicates that we are Banim Lamakim. Furthermore, Tefillin also indicates we are Banim Lamakim, because on the Tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it talks about the greatness of Klal Yisrael. On our Tefillin, it talks about the greatness of Hashem. Meaning, Tefillin belong to God. Tefillin are God's garment. How do we have a right to wear God's garment? God wears tefillin. How could we wear tefillin? The answer is tefillin shows we're banim LaHashem. And the Zohar says the fact that we have bris, anyone who guards their bris demonstrates they're a ben to Hashem. So even though at first glance you would expect that these oisos demonstrate we're avodim to Hashem, no. The very oisos Rebbe Hashem has chosen demonstrate that we are banim lamakim. Okay, so bear that in mind. We don't know exactly how yet, why Shabbos is the sharvit of Hashem, the scepter of Hashem, but we're going to take that for granted for a moment. The God's scepter is Shabbos, and if we use it, that means we're God's children. Look at number 8 for a moment. Number 8 is a sefer Pnei David. Now, interesting little tidbit. That's also the Chidah. David, the Chidah was Reb Chaim Yosef David Azulai. Many of the Svarim of the Chidah have body parts in their name. For example, Pnei David, Tzavarei Shalal, the neck, Birkei Yosef, the knees of Yosef, Chadrei Baten, the chambers of the stomach, Leiv David, Roish David, Dvash Lafi, Maris Ha'ayin. Somehow the Chidah shows names of Svarim. Chidah wrote perhaps 100 Svarim. Many of the names of his Svarim are parts of the body. So he writes in the Pnei David, he quotes this very difficult medrash, that Klal Yisrael, when they're in Golos Bavel, they said, now that we're in Golos, we do not have to keep the Shabbos. Why would you not have to keep the Shabbos in the Golos? So says the Chidah, an amazing thing. We know that we're not the only ones who rest on Shabbos. Who else rests on Shabbos? The Ribono Shel Olam. Sheishes Yamim Asa Hashem Es Hashmayim V'Atzorot Vayem Hashvi Shavas Vayinafash. God rests on. So Shabbos is God's scepter. Shabbos belongs to Ribono Shel Olam. How do we have a right to rest on Shabbos? It belongs to Ribono Shel Olam. The answer is because since we're banim lamakim, the ben is allowed to use the sharvit of his father. So Shabbos demonstrates that we are banim, because otherwise we would have no authority to keep the Shabbos. Says the Chidah, that's pshat in the Medrash. The Medrash says that when Klal Yisrael went into Golus Bavel, we know in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Gemara says that when we went into Golus, we likened it to an Eved who his master sold him. We know an Eved, if his master sells him, he's lost forever, he's gone. At least if you have a master they have a relationship with, so you have somebody who cares for you. But if your master takes you and sells you, you're lost forever. When Klal Yisrael went into Golus Bavel, they said, Klum yesh tikva le'eved shemachrei Rabbi. So we see that when Klal Yisrael went into Golus, they said, there's only one explanation for how God is sending us into Golus. We must not be banim. We must be what? Avodim. And if we're Avodim, God sold us and we have no hope. Oh, says the Chidah. That's why Klal Yisrael thought they don't have to keep Shabbos. Because by going into Golus, that indicated they're Avodim. If they're Avodim, they're not allowed to keep Shabbos. That was the argument of the Medrash. Apparently, Shabbos is more reflective of being Banim, perhaps, than those other mitzvahs. I mean, why didn't they try that also?
But even in Eved Ivri doesn't have to not work on Shabbos, right?
Of course. No, the point is that Klal Yisrael felt that the Rebbe Shem is sending us into Golus, and our relationship with him must be that of an Eved. And as an Eved, we're now to keep the Shabbos.
According to the Medrash, we're worse than an Eved Ivri.
Avada were worse than an Eved Ivri, yeah. Because an Eved Ivri has a Jewish master, but God gave us up to Nebuchadnezzar to be his other, yeah. I mean, that's the argument of the Medrash. So says the Chidah, this is the pshat in that pasuk. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbos l'doiroi sam. Klal Yisrael will keep the Shabbos for all generations. Bris olam, even when they're in Golus. Why? Because since Shabbos is ois hi beini uvein b'nei Yisrael li'olam, since it's an ois that they're banim, therefore the onus of Shabbos is forever. But Klal Yisrael thought that there's no other explanation for how the Rebbe Shem is sending them off into Golus other than the fact that we are Avadim Tashem. Says the Chidah a revolutionary pshat in the following pasuk. Es Shabsoisai Tishmoiru. What's the next part of the pasuk? V'es Mikdashai Tiro. Says the Chidah. Es Shabsoisai. My Shabbos. It's my Shabbos. You're not the only one to rest on Shabbos. I also rest on Shabbos. So if I also rest on Shabbos, what right do you have to rest? Must be you're what? You are Banim. If you're Banim, then it must be I'll redeem you one day. And there'll be a third Beis HaMikdash, V'es Mikdashai Tiro. Since it's Es Shabbos Soisai, it's my Shabbos, therefore the day will come that Umikdashi Tiro. Fine. We come to a third Chidah. Pnei David Parshas Vaschana. We know we have 2 times in the Torah it talks about the mitzvah of Shabbos. Parshas Yisroi, where it says what? Zachas Yom HaShabbos L'Kadshay. And there it says keep Shabbos. Why? Because I created the world in 7 days and I rest, in 6 days and I rested on the 7th. And then we have Shabbos in Parshas Va'eschanan. There it says what? Shamar. Why should you keep the Shabbos? Because I took you out of Mitzrayim. Says the Chidah, the 2 mentions of Shabbos reflect on each other, are megala on each other. Remember the Shabbos. Why should you remember the Shabbos? Because I created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. And in that case, Shabbos is my scepter. Because I myself rest. So what right do you have to keep the Shabbos then? You know what right you have? It must be your banim. Now what's the raya that the Rebbe Shem is a father to us? This we learned in a Shiur in Parshas Shalach, the Chidah in Parshas Shalach. That the Rebbe Shem, the fact that he took us out of Mitzrayim, here's the problem. God's a Kohen. Remember this? God's a Kohen. God's a Kohen. Mitzrayim is a land of Tumah. How could he kill the firstborn? How could he redeem us when all the firstborn are dead? The fact that the Rebbe Shem, the fact that God as a Kohen is allowed to come and be metame to us, must be what? What are we? Banim l'makom. So the 2 Aser Sadibros are moira on each other, reflect on each other. remember the Shabbos, commemorate the Shabbos because I rest on Shabbos. Elamai, you think that if I rest on Shabbos, what right do you have to keep the Shabbos? It's the Sharvitoi Shamelech. So I'm telling you again in the next Asar Sadebrais, keep the Shabbos because I took you out of Mitzrayim, a land of Tumah, a land of Mesim. And how could I contaminate myself to redeem you? Only if what? You must be in Banim Lamakayim. So the creation of the fact that God rests on Shabbos and the fact that Yibam Shem redeemed us from Mitzrayim, they both illustrate this concept that Yibam Shem is our Father.
Do Malachim do Shlichus on Shabbos?
Do Malachim work on Shabbos?
Yeah.
Why not?
Shabbos, you have to rest.
They do it without violating Malacha. Anyway, I don't know. Do Malachim have to keep the Torah? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Yeah, Eliyahu, yeah. Do you need a malach? When it's you'll ask a shadow when it's nageh. Okay, my Rabbi say one more chida. Okay, so far we learned a number of mitzvahs that demonstrate that Hashem is our Father. Number 1, Shabbos. Number 2, Tefillin. By the way, I want to say we'll have to have a shiur coming up. Rav Meir and Bar Mitzvah. A Bar Mitzvah boy wears tefillin. Why does the Bar Mitzvah boy wear tefillin? Because the Zayar says that when a Bachar becomes a Bar Mitzvah, Hashem says to this Bachar, B'niyata, you're my child. Right? Since he's his child, now he can put on tefillin. But until 13, and he was not a child of Hashem, so he can't put on the tefillin. Tefillin and banim also go together. Fine. So we have tefillin, we have Shabbos, and we have Milah. But there are 2 other phenomenon that we've spoken in the past that are absolutely contingent upon us being banim lamakay. Okay, take a look at number 10. The Rebbe Shem is talking to Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael had these, false delusions about what a fast day is. Fast day, you don't eat, you put on sackcloth, you torture yourself. Rebbe Shem said, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in you starving yourself. I'm not interested in your sackcloth. Let me tell you what a fast day is all about. Free all the bound, unlock all of the conspiracies, but the Psukim in Yeshaya mention 2 specific things. It says, Rebbe Shem, you want to do tshuva? Pasuk Zayin, Halei paros l'roiv lachmecha, divvy out your bread to the poor, to the hungry. V'aniyim merudim tavi bayis, let the downtrodden aniyim come into your home. Kisira oraim b'chisisa, if you see the naked, cover them. And b'sarchala al tasalem, don't ignore your relatives. So the first mitzvah the Rebbe Shem says you need to focus on a fast day is what? Tzedakah. Then the Rebbe Shem says, Im tashiv mishabas raglecha, withhold your feet from violating Shabbos. Asois chafotzecha b'yom kodshi, from doing your needs, from doing your desires on my holy day. Basically, the Rebbe Shem comes to Yeshaya. He says, Yeshaya, tell the people that if they want to do tshuva, they need to focus on 2 mitzvahs. Ershtins, tzedakah. Zweitens, Shabbos. What's the pshat? Why dafka tzedakah on Shabbos? Says the Chida, this is, probably the most prominent theme in the writings of the Chida. And that is, the phenomenon of tshuva could only work because Rebbe Shem's our Father. Why? Av shemachal al kvoidoi machal. A father who is allowed to overlook his insult. Av shemachal al kvoidoi machal. That's why the Chida writes, Gentiles are not able to do tshuva. Why? Because Rebbe Shem is not the father of the Ummah Yisraelim. He's what? He's their Melech. Melech shemachal al kvoidoi ein kvoidoi machal. In other words, if you want to know how tshuva operates, what the mechanism of tshuva is, it's Av shemachal al kvoidoi machal. Jews could do tshuva, Goyim can't do tshuva. It's a beferish medrash in Parshas Nosai. Yisa Hashem panav eilecha. That Hashem will show you favoritism. Yachol lakol, I would think He would show favoritism to all mankind. Talmud lomer eilecha v'loy le'umay sa'olam. The Chida, the Ramami Panoi, the Bnei Yissaschar, all the Svarim HaKadoshim say, Yidden could do tshuva, Goyim can't do tshuva. Why? Hashem's our Father, Hashem is their King. What? Ninveh, hold on to that question for about 2 minutes.
What about if they convert?
When a guy converts, they become a Jew.
Yeah. That's not true. That's not true.
It's not tshuva. It's conversion. Yeah, but Mar Rabbi say, now how do you demonstrate the Rebbeinu Shalom is your father? 2 mitzvahs. One we had already, Shabbos. By observing Shabbos, you're demonstrating, how am I allowed to observe Shabbos? This is God's scepter. Because I believe I am Hashem's child. By violating Shabbos, you're saying Hashem's not your father. You can't do tshuva anymore. If you violate Shabbos, you can't do tshuva. Because then Rebbeinu Shalom is not your father. You're saying Rebbeinu Shalom is not your father. This is a theme in the writings of the Chidah. Tshuva only works if you keep Shabbos. We could say very simply, I don't know if I ever saw this somewhere in the Chidah, but you ever realize when Rebbeinu Shalom told Adam Arishon he could do tshuva, what did Adam Arishon sing? Mizmor Shiur L'Yom Shabbos. What does Shabbos got to do with tshuva? Oh, I could do tshuva? I thought you're my king. No. Rebbeinu Shalom says, I'm your father. Oh, you're my father? And now I could keep Shabbos. Otherwise, Adam couldn't keep Shabbos before.
Shiur says that?
I'm not sure. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure. Sounds like he says, but I don't. I tried to look for it. I don't know. But we. Yeah, but in other words, why would Adam Rishon say Mizmor Shem Shabbos in relation to tshuva? No, the Navi Yeshaya says, Yidden, you want to do tshuva? A, keep Shabbos and be tzedakah. Why tzedakah? You know the famous Gemara in Bava Basra. Turnus Rufus and Rabbi Akiva. Turnus Rufus asks Rabbi Akiva, does God love the poor? So Rabbi Akiva says that he loves the poor. Turnus Rufus says he loves them so much, why doesn't he give them a buck? So Turnus Rufus says, if you give tzedakah, you go to Gehenna. I'll give you a mashal, says Turnus Rufus. There was a king, he put the Eved in jail, and somebody secretly sneaks into the cell and gives the Eved a peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. What's going to be the punishment of the benefactor? He's chayiv misa, he's a Meir b'malchus. So too, God decreed that the yenim should be poor. You're going to give him money, you're a Meir b'malchus. Says Rabbi Akiva, bad mashal. Let me give you a different mashal. A king put his son in jail, and someone sneaks in and feeds the kid peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. What's the king going to do to the benefactor? He's going to reward him. Likewise, we are not the avodim to Hashem, we are the children of Hashem. Tzedakah is only possible because we are banim la'makom. That we said many times. Why is tzedakah attributed to Rav Meir? The tzedakah, Rav Meir Balanes. Because only Rav Meir, who holds that we are always the children of Hashem, holds you could give tzedakah in the galus. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no tzedakah in the galus. Rabbi Yehuda only because we're avodim to Hashem. Tzedakah is only according to Rav Meir. So says the Chidah, Yeshaya tells Klal Yisrael, you want to do tshuva? First of all, give tzedakah. Second of all, keep Shabbos. These are the two linchpins that you're banim la'makom. Once you're banim la'makom, you can activate the process of Av Shemachal Akvaydai Kvaydai Machal. Okay. So Rabbi Adler wants to know, what, Goyim can't do tshuva? What does it mean Goyim can't do tshuva? We, Yom Kippur, right in the closing moments of the day, we take out the scroll and we read that a Jewish prophet is sent to the city of Nineveh to tell them, do tshuva. And the purpose seems to be to say that to teach the Jewish people, no matter how low you go, you could always do tshuva. So we see Goyim could do tshuva. This is the kash of the Ramami Pano. That if only Yidden could do tshuva. Now the Ramami Pano says, tshuva is a mitzvah d'oraisa. It's a mitzvah saseh, nisyachdu ba Yisrael, because Hashem has mercy on us. So frek the Ramami Pano, what's pshat in the people of Nineveh? By the way, we said over this Ramami Pano in the Shiur on the Haftarah of Parsha Shoftim. I'm going to tell you the three answers, and then I'm going to tell you I found Rabbi Chanan Wasserman asked this kasha. And I hit the ceiling when I saw Rabbi Chanan ask this kasha. Because I say this over a lot, and often when I say out this chidah that only Yidden could do tshuva, Gentiles can't be tshuva, there's usually somebody there who goes, what? Goyim can't do tshuva? How could such a thing be? The Rambam doesn't say that. And it sounds like it's a good kasha. How come none of the Rishonim say Gentiles can't do tshuva? But that's what the chidah says. So somebody once said, yeah, that's the chidah, and the Bnei Yissaschar, and the Ramami Pano, these are Sifrei Machshava, Chasidus, Kabbalah. But it's not in any of the Rishonim. But I always held my ground. No, the reason why nobody talks about it is because to them it's a davar pasha, but nobody argues about this. But when I saw Rabbi Chanan Wasserman asked this kasha, now Rabbi Chanan was a Rosh Hashiva. I don't think I ever saw him quote any of this from the Chida or any of this from the Ramami Pano, or for sure not the Bnei Yissaschar. But he says the Sfarim HaKadoshim say that only Yidden could do tshuva and Goyim can't do tshuva. How does that fit in with Ninveh? So I was like overjoyed to see Rabbi Chanan ask, because now whatever Rabbi Chanan asks the kasha and he gives an answer, so that means, first of all, nobody argues on this concept, because if somebody of the other, somebody of the Rishonim Achronim would argue, he would have quoted it. And let's see what he says. But first I'm going to tell you the Ramami Pano's answers. Number one, really Ninveh should not have been able to do tshuva, because Gentiles can't do tshuva. But there were so many Gentiles there. There were 1.2 million Gentiles. And the Rebbe Hashem just had Rachmanis on it. What's he going to do? He's going to wipe away 1.2 million people? It's going to be like a bald spot in the map. So even though technically Mitzad Adin Goyim can't do tshuva, Mitzad Riboy Uchlaseha, because of the great population, he allowed them to do tshuva. Number two, what's the halacha? If you steal a brick and you build into the new building, or you steal a thread. Let's say I steal a thread from you and I make myself a suit with your thread. Do I have to unravel the whole suit and return the thread? So Takanas Hashavim, I pay you for the thread. I don't have to unravel the whole suit. But in Ninveh, they went Lefnim Mishur Sadin and they raised every building that had a stolen brick and they unraveled every suit that had a stolen thread. So they went beyond the measure. So Hashem responded in kind and went beyond the measure and accepted their tshuva, even though he didn't have to. Number three, says Ramami Pano, the people of Ninveh never did tshuva. Goyim cannot do tshuva. Yoina says, Oid Arbaim Yoim Ninveh. Nepachas in 40 days Ninveh will be destroyed. Ninveh was destroyed. Oid is Gematria 80, the Malbim says. Arbaim is 40, in 120 years Ninveh was destroyed. Goyim can't do tshuva, they can only defer punishment. But Goyim cannot do tshuva. Maybe not with what? Rebbe Hashem was patient. They didn't even do anything. They didn't even defer. God was marachaf, right? These are the three answers, Ramami Pano. Comes Rabbi Chanan says, Olam this. I was so besimcha that this is such a good kasha, this machshava kasha, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman and the Koivitz Ha'aras. Comes, it was like the most lamdash sefer on Yavamis. Rabbi Chanan quotes a Peladika Gemara to answer the kasha that if Goyim can't do tshuva, how they do tshuva in Ninveh. Ready for this? It's amazing Gemara. No. A mamzer. Does a mamzer have to honor his father? Could a mamzer hit his father? Gemara says no. You go, frack the Gemara, but the father's not a kosher yid. He's not oisa masa amcha. Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis in Yavamis. Answers the Gemara. We're talking about the father did tshuva. So now the father did tshuva. He's a kosher yid. So now the kid can't hit the father. Frek the Gemara, you can't do. What do you mean he did tshuva? How do you do tshuva? Having a mamzer is mu'uvas she'ena yachaliska, and it's an infraction can never be corrected. There's a mamzer here. How did he do tshuva? The only way to do tshuva is to hire a hitman and kill his son, and then he'll be chayiv for that. How do you do tshuva for producing a mamzer? Says the Gemara, but right now he's a good guy. You're right. It's Mu'uva Sheino Yachaliskain. But he's a good guy now. He did tshuva. So B'chanan asks, what in the world does the Gemara mean? It's Mu'uva Sheino Yachaliskain. But right now he's a good guy. If it's an infraction you can't correct, how is he a good guy now? Says Rabbi Chanan, there are two dinim in tshuva. There's mikanu lahaba and there's lamafreya. If someone does an aveira, there are two things. Right now, you're a bad guy. If you have an aveira in your back pocket, you are rotten. You are evil. You're a rasha. You're not a Jew. You're not a kosher Jew. Your kid could hit you. So if you do tshuva, from now on, we'll label you a good man. But wait a second. Does that mean I don't have in my back pocket the aveira I did? No, you still have in your back pocket. But from today and on, we'll label you tzaddik. Doesn't mean you're not going to pay a heavy price for what you did in the past. Then there's another chiddush of tshuva. Tshuva could come and say, not only are you a good man from, what's today's date? October 30th? Thank you so much. From October 30th and on, not only are you a good Are you a good man from Beis Cheshvan and on? Beis Cheshvan is a very important day for me. Something happened on Beis Cheshvan.
You got married?
Not my birthday. It's a day I better remember, okay? So, Beis Cheshvan, not only Beis Cheshvan and on, are you a good guy? But tshuva says you never did it even retroactively. That's the chiddush of tshuva. Says Rabbi Chanan, I have a chakira. If a gazlan, I know I give a shiur on Friday, and then I go to in Queens, and I go shopping in a store in Queens for Shabbos. People say, why do you go shopping in Queens? Why not in the I said, no, that's where I am. I come out of the shiur. There's a guy who walks into the store, and he takes a cherry and he eats it, or he walks home with the yated. I don't know, God, maybe whatever. We'll be danim l'kav. He's a gazlan. The guy's a pashat gazlan. I've seen him many times. He walked in. He used to take cherries. So he's like, Stam, he's a gazlan. He's a pachas mishal proof. But then I saw him taking yated. Okay, hopefully it was the FJJ. It was free. I don't know. Maybe I didn't see right. Anyway, is the gazlan kosher le'edos? Is a gazlan kosher le'edos? Pasal le'edos. Let's say you have a gazlan and he does tshuva. Then we say, Rabbi, you got to return. You owe $500. So I don't have the money. So Mikanu Abba is a good guy, but he was never oiker lemafreya what he did. Now, let's say he's an oines. So very nice, he's an oines. But he still can't get oines is lav kamande avad, so he still has not rectified what he did. So Rabbi Chanan wants to know, is he kosher le'edos? Says Rabbi Chanan, even though he still has to pay the price, he's still kosher le'edos. You could do a half tshuva. You could do tshuva mikan al abba, even if you have not yet been oiker lemafreya. Says Rabbi Chanan, based on this, Hagoyin HaTzadik, Rav Naftali Zilverberg from Warsaw wants to say that that's the answer to the Ramah Mipano's kasha. The Ramah Mipano asks, if Goyim can't do tshuva, what's pshat in Ninveh? When we say Goyim can't do tshuva, it means they don't have the special gift that they could uproot retroactively all the evil in the past. It's still on their record. But Mikanu Laba, God will look at them favorably. In other words, if God wanted to utterly destroy them, God will say, no, they're good guys now. Doesn't mean that one day they won't pay the price, whether here or in the afterlife. They have not uprooted. In other words, there are two dimensions of tshuva, says Rebbe Chanan. All of mankind perhaps can do tshuva and then from here on be considered good. But the special gift that you could do tshuva and uproot retroactively what you've done in the past, that is a special matana given only to the Jewish people. So that's a new answer to the kasha based on the chidah and the chidah's idea that only Yidden could do tshuva. Okay, Meir, Rabbi said fasten your seatbelts. One more lamdos. This is something that always troubled me. I was always wondering about this. Because we know this idea from the Chidah that you could do tshuva because God's our Father. But He's also our King. So what does it do for us that God's our King? Does that help us out at all? Because as King He can't be meichel us. Only as Father He can be meichel us. Okay, that's one thing that we want to think about. Then there's this very obscure comment of Rabbeinu Ephraim. Look at number 15. Rabbeinu Ephraim says, Vayishbois vayayim ashvi. The gematria of the word Vayishbois is 718. The same letters as V'tishbi, the same gematria as tshuva. Then the merit of Hatshuva and Vayishbois, V'tishbi will come, Eliyahu will come. Eliyahu will come in the chus of tshuva and Shabbos. Fine. Next question. Does God keep Shabbos? The whole shiur is based on the fact that the Rebbeinu Shem keeps Shabbos. That Shabbos proves that we're banim. Because how do we have a right to keep Shabbos? Shabbos is God's sharvet, it's a scepter. Because God rests on Shabbos. So there's a very incredible medrash. The medrash asks, if God rests on Shabbos, so what? He has an Eruv? Because how does He make it rain? The rain is carrying. And how does He blow the wind? It's like moving things in the Rishus. And how does He move the clouds? It's carrying. That's the kasha of the Medrash. Is God Sabbath observant? The Medrash wants to know. If He is, what Eruv does He use? Which Eruv? The flapper, you can't use the flapper. How does God carry on Shabbos? Says the Medrash. I'll give you a mashal. You have two guys in one chutzner. Are they allowed to carry from one to another? No. But if it's one guy's chutzner, he could carry because it's all his. So too says the Medrash, Kol ha'olam kulay shalayhu. The whole world is his. So how do we know the whole world belongs to God? From Shabbos. Because otherwise, how does he keep Shabbos? I mean, I think you could stop and ask, how does God make it rain on Shabbos? He's watering the plants. I mean, there are a lot of kashas you could ask based on that. But the Medrash is only interested in carrying. Okay? Next point. Frek the Chida. How does tshuva work? This is from the Chida and the Choymas Anach on Bereshis. How does tshuva work? We said many times, Av shemachal al kvoidei kvoidei machal. But says the Chida, there's a machloikis hapoiskim, even though Av shemachal al kvoidei kvoidei machal. But what if you're mavaza your father? Could your father be meichel you? Some achronim say no. Can't be. Av shemachal al bizyoinoi ein bizyoinoi machal. So what if somebody is mavaza Hashem? Kidvar Hashem baza. There's certain averos that are considered a bizayon. How could Hashem be mechaper our bizayon, even though He's our Father? Av shemachal al bizyoinoi ein bizyoinoi machal. You hear the kasha? Very nice. Tshuva works because He's our Father, but fatherhood doesn't forgive for everything. How does God forgive for avodah zarah? Avodah zarah is kidvar Hashem baza. You ready for this? Says the Chida, a new yesod. The new yesod is, says the Chida. Now the Chida quotes this Gemara, and I think this quote is going to challenge everything we learned tonight. Says the Chida, you know how Hashem could forgive for us? The Gemara asks, if God's our King, how is He allowed to lead us in the midbar? Vashem hoylech lefneim yoimam. But it's a bizayon for God. It's a bizayon for a king to lead his subjects. Says the Gemara, Kol ha'olam kulay shalai. The whole world belongs to Him, so He can overlook His bizayon. Says the Chida, even though Av shemachal al bizyoinoi ein bizyoinoi machal, but since the whole world is His, He is able to overlook everything.
It's not what we're saying, hallow.
By the way, says the Chida, that's the pshat. It says, Vayasam Hashem l'kayin ois. God gave Kayin a sign. The Medrash says, what was the ois that Hashem gave Kayin? Shabbos. Why? Says the Chida, because Kayin wanted to know, God, how do you forgive my ritzicha? Ritzicha's bizayon to you. How do you forgive that? So Hashem says, no problem, Shabbos. Shabbos shows the whole world is mine. Why? Because otherwise, how could I carry? So since the whole world is mine, I could overlook my bizayon. So I have one simple question on this Chida. This challenges everything we ever learned. Because then Goyim should be able to do tshuva. Because the whole world is God. And God should be able to forgive and forgo everything. If Shabbos demonstrates that the whole world belongs to God and God can even forgive His bizayon, and the Chida even says that's how God as a king is able to lead us, even though it's bizayon because the whole world is His, then why can't Goyim do tshuva? God owns the whole world and He could overlook everything. Good kasha, right? Why Goyim should be able to do tshuva now. So I think an amazing chiddush is that if you look up that Gemara that says, how could God lead us in the midbar? But it's a bizayon. Answers the Gemara, the whole world is His. The Gemara doesn't ask that God's our king, so how could He overlook our bizayon? The Gemara says, God is our new relationship. Not our father, not our melech. God's our Rebbe. Rav shemachal al bezyoinoi ein bezyoinoi machal. So God as our Rebbe, how could He lead us in the midbar? To which the Gemara answers, the whole world is His. Meaning, the whole world is His only allows God to forgive us as our Rebbe. But God's only our Rebbe. He's not the Rebbe of the Ummah Yisraelim. God only teaches Torah to Klal, so He doesn't teach Torah to the Jew. Meaning the concept that the whole world is His only activates the principle of Rav Shemachal al Bezyoinoi Bezyoinoi Machal, not Melech. Even though the Chida mentions Melech, I think you have to say it's a misprint. Okay, one more Bnei Yisachar, and then we'll wrap it up. Look at number 16. Anybody know, just a quick question, anybody know who Reb Yaakov Yitzchak Milublin is? The Chayza Milublin. Okay, there's a very interesting medrash. Hashem says to Avram Avinu, if Klal Yisrael keep Shabbos, they could go into Eretz Yisrael. If they don't keep Shabbos, they can't go into Eretz Yisrael. So now, okay, well, what does Shabbos got to do with Eretz Yisrael? You know, either we get it or we don't get it. It's our land, it's not our land. Why do we have to keep Shabbos? Says Bnei Yisachar. We all know. The Bnei Yisachar gives a mashal. You feed a homeless guy a rotting dinner, no problem, he'll digest it like nobody's business. So yeah, he has a stomach, he has a system that could digest anything. You feed a pampered, spoiled kid something rotted, he'll be sick for a week. Eretz Yisrael is royal land. Eretz Yisrael cannot tolerate sin. The moment we sin, Eretz Yisrael will expectorate us. That's why the Torah keeps on saying you can't violate the Torah in the land of Israel. The land will vomit you out. So what hope do we have to be in Eretz Yisrael? The answer is tshuva. In Eretz Yisrael, you have to constantly do tshuva. There ain't tzaddik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov lo yechta. But it says Bnei Yisachar, to live in Israel, you need to do tshuva daily, hourly. You have to be constantly doing tshuva. That's the pshat. V'yarashta, v'yashavta. You'll inherit it, v'yashavta. Do tshuva. Constantly do tshuva, otherwise you can't be there. The land's going to throw you out. That's why Eretz Yisrael belongs to Klal Yisrael, because we could do tshuva. Why could we do tshuva? No? Why could a Jew do tshuva? Because Hashem's our father. But a Goy, Hashem's their king. They can't be in Israel. But that's provided that we accept to be the children of Hashem. Provided that we're Makabel, which mitzvah? Shabbos. If we're Makabel Shabbos and we accept to be God's children, then we could do tshuva and then we could be in the land of Israel. But if we don't accept the Shabbos and we're demonstrating we're not banim, we can't be in Israel because then we can't do tshuva anymore. You ready for the Chayza Milublin? Get a little Chayza in tonight. A little Chayza action. Says the Chayza Milublin, there's a pasuk in Eicha. Nachnu pashanu marinu ata lo salachta. The Chayza says like this. Literally, Nachnu, we, Pashanu have rebelled, umarinu, and been rebellious, ataloy salachta, and therefore you have not forgiven us. Says the Chazim Lublin on page 4, right hand side, the paragraph that begins with Vazeh. Nachnu miloshen yom hamenuach, the day of rest. Nachnu pashanu. We rebelled against the Shabbos. And if we rebel against the Shabbos, we're saying we're not banim. And we're saying we're not banim, you can't do tshuva. Ataloy salachta. You ruin tshuva. If a Jew does not keep Shabbos, he nullifies the possibility to do tshuva. Then he's saying he's like a guy, and that's how he paskin, by the way. Someone who's machalo Shabbos for Hesi has a din of an akum. It's oyam v'noira to think about that it's possible for a Jew to abdicate his right as a Jew. But it's dependent on Shabbos. Therefore, says the Bnei Yisachar, that's pshat. God told Abraham, you will inherit Israel provided you keep the Shabbos. Because if you keep the Shabbos, you could do tshuva and you could remain there. But if you don't keep the Shabbos, you can't do tshuva, you can't stay there anymore. Yeah? I would say a little bit differently. Just want to say a small chiddush, then we're going to wrap it up. We learned on Sukkos that the only way Klal Yisrael has a right to Eretz Yisrael is if we're banim. Why? Listen to this lamdas. God gave us Eretz Yisrael as a gift. But He didn't give us America as a gift. And even in Eretz Yisrael, He gave us the whole Eretz Yisrael. But He didn't give us Yushalayim, because Yushalayim is not Nischalik L'Shvatim. What's the halacha, says Rav Shlomo El-Ghazi? If you give an Eved a matana, and you say you could have this, but you can't have that, then the Eved has nothing, because we say, Midah Hai Shire. The same way I didn't give you X, I didn't free you. If you give an Eved a gift, it's not Chal. Because we say, just like you didn't give him X, you didn't give him freedom, you didn't give him what you gave him. The only way we are Shin Eretz Yisrael is if we're banim. Because we could say, God gave us Eretz Yisrael, He didn't give us other lands. But as an Eved, there is no Chalois Matana. But the Bnei Yisachar says differently. God says to Abraham, if you keep Shabbos, you're a ben, you could do tshuva, you could remain in Eretz Yisrael. So even though there are many, many mitzvahs that demonstrate we are banim la'makam, the mitzvah we're speaking about tonight is the mitzvah of Shabbos. Shabbos demonstrates l'chol ha'olam kulai the concept of banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. Now, who taught us? Who taught Klal Yisrael that no matter what madriga we're on, no matter what we do, we are always banim lamakoim? Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir's shita. Where's Rabbi Meir buried? Rabbi Meir is buried in Teveria. That's what we learned in the past. The reason why Mashiach will come from Teveria is because through the koyach of Rabbi Meir's shita, banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem, the goyim can never say we don't deserve it, because in Teveria, Rabbi Meir is the Mar Da'asra, and he paskins ben kach and ben kach. So if there's anywhere in the world that a Shabbos is a Shabbos, if there's anywhere in the world that has the full luster and grandeur and illumination of Shabbos, if there's anywhere in the world where we could feel the full love that Kosh Baruch Hu has for Klal Yisrael, as evidenced by Shabbos, where would it be? Teveria. B'Teveria. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Yehi mimachnise Shabbos b'Teveria. Because Shabbos can only be kept because we are banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. That is the yesod that we learned from the city of Teveria. Amazingly, I have a good friend in France. He showed me the gematria of Shabbos. Shabbos Shin Beis Taf 702 is gematria Ben. So what are you talking about? Ben is 52. No, it's not. We know the Taf is 400. The final Chaf is 500. The final Mem is 600. The final Nun is 700. Ben, it says in the Sefer Zachar v'Shamar of Rav Asher Anshel Young Rice, not the individual who lives across the street, but his Alta Zayda. He's on the Rav Asher Anshel Young Rice. That's him, of Chinger. He was a great Baal Moifes, tremendous Baal Moifes. In Hungary, people flocked his kever. One of the mamish, tremendous Baal Moifes. He says, Shabbos hu Lashem. Shabbos is equal to the name of God. Because we know one of God's names is Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is spelled out a certain way. We know God has 4 ways to spell Yud Kei Vav Kei. 45, 52, 65, 72. 52 is the Shem Ben. Shabbos hu Lashem. Shabbos is equal to Hashem. But he brings, if somebody is Shomer Shabbos, you will be considered a Ben. Shabbos and Ben is the same gematria, because if you're Shomer Shabbos, you're demonstrating banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. Also in the Sefer Avas Yisrael Vishnitz, he says the Ben with the Nun, final Nun, is gematria Shabbos. And we could say, Rabbi say, amazing chiddush. Why is Teveria called Teveria? So the Gemara says it's not called Teveria; it's called Rekes. Why is it called Rekes? Even the emptiest people there are full of mitzvahs like a Rimain. So the Mefarshim ask, that's every Jew. It says, Kepelach harimain rakasech. Every Jew is full of mitzvahs like a Rimain. Why Dafka in Teveria are we saying in Teveria they're full of mitzvahs like a Rimain? Because in Teveria you have Rabbi Meir. In Teveria, even if other Yidden elsewhere are not Molei mitzvahs, in the land of Rabbi Meir, in the city of Rabbi Meir, every Jew is Molei mitzvahs. Every Jew is considered ben kach nikram banim. So my friend in France, Rabbi Fall, he said, Teveria, the Gemara says, why is it called Teveria? Milashon Tabor. What does Tabor mean? The navel. It's the navel of the world. Meaning, what does a navel represent? The motherhood, the fatherhood, right? A parenthood, the relationship of being banim. Teveria is the source for the concept of banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. Hence, it's named after Tabor Haaretz, and therefore there's a special connection between Shmir Shabbos and the city of Teveria. Yehei chelki mimachnise Shabbos b'Teveria. Goy sheshavas is chayiv misa. But because we are banim l'Hashem, we're able to keep Shabbos, we're able to put on tefillin, we have bris milah, we have sukkah, we have Eretz Yisrael, and ultimately we have tshuva, which allows all of these mitzvahs to remain with us.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.